Did you want to say anything, Shelley?
It's going right now, Patrick.
Oh.
Ready to go.
If you want me to, I will.
So, well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Toronto Area Region's first ever virtual speaker series. We are very excited about this cross-board collaboration, and we hope that you are too. Our virtual speaker series will be occurring bi-weekly on Tuesday evenings from 7 to 8 p.m. from tonight until June 2nd. And I have to say that this is the perfect day to start our series. It is the International Day of Awesomeness. I had no idea such a thing existed, but Google it, and it's true. I have to say as well that our presenter tonight is certainly awesome.
It's going right now, Patrick. There's a little feedback.
Do you want to say anything,
Me
Shelley?
too, I will.
It's going right now, Patrick.
So, well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Toronto Area
Me too, I
Region's
will.
first ever virtual sorry, there's a delay there. Our presenter tonight is certainly awesome, George Couros.
Virtual speaker series. Our virtual speaker series. Very excited about this cross-board collaboration from 7 to 8 p.m. Our virtual speaker series is bi-weekly, and I have to say that this is from 7 to 8 series.
Hey, does one of you have it on twice? You have the link open twice?
And it is the International Day of Awesomeness as well.
Because that might be it. Are we good now? It must have been Shelley. Patrick, can you hear me?
I can hear you, George.
Okay.
Sorry,
so
there was things there. I think that went through. George, I didn't get to finish my introduction on you.
Okay.
George Couros is the Division Principal of Innovative Teaching and Learning with Parkland School Division in Stony Plain, Alberta, and the schools he serves are from ages K to 12. And we know that you're very passionate about technology, and we look forward to learning about from you tonight.
Oh, thanks, Patrick. I appreciate that. Really looking forward to this tonight. Really honored to be able to speak to everyone here. I'm just going to actually set this up.
You?
Mute
Can you
phone.
mute yours for 2 seconds?
We're just gonna
Can you hear me? I'm George. I can hear you. Introduction on you. Okay. Sorry, George. Division Principal of Innovative. I'm George. Learning with Parkland School Division. George, Stony Plain, Alberta, and the Division's
Let's try this again. Patrick, just wave if you can hear me. Shelley, can you hear me too? This is our obviously our first go at trying a Google Hangouts here, and we're hoping you can hear me okay. If there's any feedback, Patrick, please let me know. I'm not hearing it now. But Shelley and Patrick, I'm really honored to be here and to connect with you. And so we are going to talk about, basically they posed some questions to me, and I'm just going to share the screen so everyone can actually see it there. But as I do in every single presentation, this is a slide that I think is really powerful, and it's something that I know the group is focusing on, that this notion of actually tapping into everyone. So it's a really great opportunity to learn from different people and share ideas. So this idea of like the smartest person in the room is the room. So I know Shelley is actually following the hashtag at eLearnONT, and I know Patrick is looking at another space as well. And just feel free to ask any questions that you have through the process. Now, I will be actually looking at my Twitter feed on my phone while I'm doing this to make sure there's no feedback, but I can still kind of keep up with what is happening. I can already see, Tina Zeta sending messages and following along. So this is going to be a really good opportunity. So this is a little bit of a presentation, but it's also meant to be a conversation. So please feel free to send your questions to myself, but especially to the hashtag, because Patrick and Shelley will interrupt me if you have questions, because we want it to be somewhat interactive, even though there is a little bit of a presentation here. Now, I love this slide because I think this is really true with a lot of our world today. Is all of us are advocating for change, yet it seems like a lot of people are talking about other people changing, as opposed to what do we do ourselves and how do we connect. And I think about this picture, which I think is a really powerful one, a little bit funny, but this idea of this kid, this is a norm for kids growing up now, and I've heard this several times in the last little while, this idea of like, this is not technology to a kid because they are so used to it, just like the same way we don't think of a TV as technology as much because we've grown up with it. Now we see different iterations and of innovations of a television, but it's still something we've grown up with, and we don't make a big deal of it, nor a car or anything like this. And so what does this look like in our world today, helping these kids that come in with these technologies that are learning constantly all the time? And even in that, that kid sitting in one way is learning a ton. And how do we bring this into school, and how do we actually embrace this? And then you see the opposite of what schools are doing. And I think this is a really powerful image, of the kid actually, bringing in something into the school and figuring out. And I think it's kind of a powerful image. The first thing that I thought of when I actually looked at this picture was the movie Shawshank Redemption. And if you've never seen that movie, there's a part where he basically is trying to get out of jail, and he hides like a little pick in a Bible, and it's to me, that's a terrible thing. That my first inclination when I look at this is I think of a movie about someone in jail and being in prison and things like that. So I wonder. I remember sharing this image with a ton of people, and I think years ago we would have had people really pushing back. That kids would do this and how disrespectful, and then now you're seeing teachers saying, well, why can't a kid bring this in? Like, why wouldn't they be able to have access to this really powerful technology, and what would they do? How could they use this to connect with other people? And I think that's a really powerful image to discuss with your staff, is like, where are you on this continuum, and why would a kid actually have to bring this in and focus on this? And I think that's part of the reason why we're focusing on this idea of game changers. And game changers in the sense of not a technology or a device or anything like that, but game changers in the sense of what we are doing as educators. And I know that there's a lot of really great speakers coming up that are really focusing on how do we empower others as well as ourselves to make change for kids that are growing up in a world with constant access, not only to information but to one another. I think that's a really important point. So just so you know, I don't ever make the assumption that anybody knows me, so I always do a little introduction. I think this is a pretty powerful image, basically what I believe in, and this idea of like really getting involved with kids. I still work as division principal in a school division just outside of Edmonton, who does some really innovative things, and I really feel blessed to be a part of, because there's a lot of boundaries that we don't actually have to deal with, and we have a lot of opportunity to try different things and push what we're doing in education. And this picture was taken from a day, and I've worked with all levels K to 12. This was taken as a day that I went to this class. They were grade 4 students, and basically what we did is we had a blogging party, a blog launch party, and through that practice what we did was we actually sat with the kids and we all blogged, and they had their first day that they were writing and sharing with the entire world, and they brought me in as kind of like a guest speaker, not because I'm famous or anything like that, but because I'm someone who has a blog and someone who's gone through that experience and shared it with the world. And what was cool is I was tweeting out their blogs, and these kids were so deep in their learning, and I think that's a really powerful thing when you get kids really excited about the opportunities that they have. And I remember having one teacher talk about some of the issues that she had with her students of how they were using blogging, and they were writing all the time, and so she had a ton of marketing to do, and I actually had to say, like, can we just hold back a second? Like, you're complaining that your students are writing way too much. And when have we ever had that issue? And in fact, it's been the opposite. And if we actually think of ways that make sense, give these kids an authentic audience, then we really create some really powerful opportunities. But the reason why I show this picture is because this is symbolic to me in the sense that I really believe in kind of going all in and making sure that we have opportunities to connect and learn this as well. Because if we don't actually, as adults, way and understand, how learning is different now because of access, then we're not going to do anything really different in our classrooms. I think that's a really important piece. Now, I don't know, Patrick, do you or Shelley have any questions at this point or anything you want to ask? Just feel free, and hopefully you don't get the feedback here. I don't know. I think I shut you off forever, Patrick. I maybe never be able to turn you back on. Hopefully we can figure this back out. Patrick, I think we can hear you now. No, I can't hear a thing you said. I'll just keep going then. I was asked these questions, and so Patrick and Shelley sent me these questions, and these are what I'm going to address. And I interpreted them in a way that kind of made sense to me. They were really open-ended, which I really appreciate. And this notion of like, what does a 21st century classroom look like? And if I'm looking at this classroom, the first thing I'm looking at is the environment of the classroom and what that could actually look like. And I actually tweeted out just recently this idea of like the spaces that I learn in and where I'm the most excited to be, and how they look nothing like our current classrooms. And I think we have to really think about how this looks different in our work. And so this is the first place that I thought of when I think of a classroom is a Starbucks. And the reason I look at a Starbucks is because, not because I'm like, pushing chains or anything like that, but this idea that the ability to be able to actually the ability to be able to actually learn in a space that I'm comfortable in, has different options for seating, the lighting is different, and I have opportunities to like have connections and access, and how important that is in our world today, and how meaningful that is. And so you look at this picture, and do our classrooms look like this? Do they look like this space that many of us actually, are really excited about for learning? Now, I don't know if you're going to, did you say something, Shelley, or are you good?
I know I'm good.
Oh, and I can actually hear you now, too. That's awesome. So, I don't know, Patrick is forever muted, so I think it might be just you and I, Shelley, for the night. So if you have a question, good, now we can hear you. So, when I look at this space and what this actually looks like, one of the things that we talked about in our school, because this environment is so crucial, and one of the participants in one of my workshops talked about the idea of the environment as the third teacher. And you look at this space and how so many schools look nothing like this. And what we talked about is, for example, in the space of, like a lot of schools have like computer labs, and we go and we drag the kids down to a computer lab. We get it for 40 or 80 minutes a week, and depending upon the school, that's something that we have access to. And what we wanted to, and this is a quote from one of my blogs. Technology should be at the point of instruction and be as accessible and learning as a pencil. It shouldn't be an event. How many pencil labs do you have in your school? And this idea is that, how would we ever get kids to be good with anything if we did it only 40 minutes a week? And so when I look at this space, what we did with our computer labs with some of our schools is we actually, instead of replacing all the desktops, we redid the space. Not as obviously fancy, because we don't have the same budget as a Starbucks would, but thinking about this in this context is, how do we actually get to this point of having this type of environment? And so we would use it for art, we would use it for English, we would use it for so many different subjects, but you could bring technology in. And so it's kind of rethinking these spaces. And what we wanted to actually do in that process was actually create a space where kids wanted to actually go, and teachers wanted to go, and then they would say, oh, this is so much better than what I'm doing in my classroom. How can we make this? And so then teachers started redesigning their classrooms and making them more conducive to learning in a way that is comfortable for many kids, not something that is simply school. And I think that we kind of have, like, if you've been in our public school system, or any school system, and then you become a teacher, it's really easy to get in the notion of actually like providing desks and teachers teacher at the front, kids sitting and separated. And what we're saying is that these spaces are way more conducive to learning, but you really have to rethink on the role of the teacher. And Kern, I can't remember his last name, I saw him speak and he said teaching has changed significantly, but there's we need teachers more now than ever, which I think was a really powerful statement. The thing that we wanted to really think about, and this is the other notion of...
George?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, so you can hear me.
Yeah.
Just along those lines, we did have a question. So you talked about changing the dynamics of the space and the affordances within the room. One of the questions that came forward was about curriculum changing, and how important is it for the curriculum to be changed or switched in order for an educator to truly embrace 21st century teaching and learning?
Well, that's a great question. I think this is one of the things that we wanted to talk about in this space, is that this is not only about the environment, it's actually rethinking. So when I look back to the original question, like what does a 21st century classroom look like, what I see a lot of schools doing is simply saying, okay, we're far behind. The school across the street has got a ton of iPads, so we actually need to get these devices. And so simply adding a device to a classroom might make what I would say like a 21st century classroom, but it does not actually change the learning. And so going back to the notion of the curriculum is that unfortunately the curriculum should be written on a Google Doc. Like it should be changing constantly, it should be something we constantly look at. It shouldn't be static for 6 or 7 years, because the world changes way too quick. But that being said, the way that we teach the curriculum is up to us as teachers, and the way we get to certain points. And I think that's something that we want to look at. So when I look at this question, I'm looking not only what the classroom looks like, but I'm actually looking at about the space. And I love this visual from Nancy Khalil, and she's in Ottawa, talking about how crucial these devices are to learning. And like if you see the school, their sign is like basically when you walk in, actually turn on these devices. But simply turning on the devices, but having the exact same practice is not going to be powerful types of learning. In fact, it's going to really disrupt things in probably a negative way from the teacher standpoint, because if you're teaching and you're lecturing me all the time and it's a boring way of teaching and I have a device, I'm going to totally gravitate towards the device. And that's not just kids, that's adults as well. You look at the things that they're doing and how different it is. I have a device and I'm in a staff professional learning opportunity and I'm disengaged. Well, of course I'm going to start doing other things on my device, because that's just human nature. So one of the things that I've really looked at is this is a post I've written, and it's interesting because this is something I wrote 2 years ago, but it's really kind of taken off in the last little while because Sylvia Duckworth created this visual to accompany it, and she does these really amazing images in what they're what we're sharing. And it talks about the different things that I would look for in a classroom today, and I'm not going to read them out to you, but the reason why I share this with you is that it was kind of neat, because I do consult on the side of my regular job working in Parkland School Division, and this is something I created on my own time, and it's actually been used in our own school division for not just our teachers, but our students. So our students look at this, and they're asked, how is your school doing? Are you getting these opportunities to do these things? Can you tell us more about it? And they're actually divvying them up. And I think what was neat about this graphic that was created is that so many teachers actually started using this, but the power is that we started handing it out to students. And I had no idea they actually did this on their own time. And they actually shared this image. And I think it's a powerful thing, is that if you were to ask your students, right now, are these things happening in your classroom, and explain and tell us about this, what would that tell you about your schools? And I think that if you're kind of thinking about becoming innovative and doing different things, it starts from that point of view of empathy, and how are these things being met in your classroom, and what is being shared, and talking to students there. I don't know, Patrick or Shelley, do you have any questions about anything? I don't know. You can unmute yourself, I think, Patrick. So.
Now, yes, no questions have come forward related to that. I have a question, because I know the topics you're speaking about. There have been a couple of questions that I've put aside. I think they'll be coming up in a little more relevant in a little while.
Okay, perfect. So the next question that I was asked, where is education headed? And I think that this is a really tough one to ask, or to answer, because I think that the easiest thing to say is that we need to continuously teach our kids to be learners, that we're constantly learning, we're adaptable, we're flexible, which is a nice thing, because we've really promoted the notion of lifelong learning forever in school. But the thing is that we've said this is a notion, but we've really focused and emphasized on the product of learning, which kind of says there's a stop. And the idea, you do grade 2 and then you go to grade 3 and then you go to grade 4. It's kind of like there's endpoints where learning is a continuous. It's like a ray. It goes on forever once it starts. And so I think that what we are really trying to focus on in education, and I think is relevant today as it will be 5-10 years from now, is the process of learning, and actually how do you learn, and not only a teacher being able to tell a student how to learn, but a student being empowered in that process where they actually think about how they learn and they have an understanding of that. And a lot of people are familiar with this. They're familiar with Carol Dweck's work, the notion of the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. And we're aiming for this not only for our students but for our educators to have that growth mindset, where they can actually connect. They'll get ideas and they'll be open to this way. So we're going to continue this way, but actually, thinking differently about the work that we're doing. But the thing that I'm seeing that I really think is something that's important going in the future is this notion of the innovator's mindset. And so I've actually taken Carol Dweck's work and tried to build a little bit further and how this is applicable to education, and the notion that that abilities, intelligence, and talents are developed leading to the creation of new and better ideas. And I think we live in this world where this is part of it, is that you simply cannot just, people are trying to create new things. Like, you'll look at things as simple as Etsy, that you're, building stuff and you're tapping in a market, and anyone can be a maker, and not a maker in the sense of just necessarily using your hands on a table, but making things in different mediums. And so how do we take this learning that we have and actually develop and create new things, which I think is kind of the focus of what an innovator is. And so we're not looking at only developing this in our students, but also how do we actually develop this in our staff. And this is something I believe is not simply just focused on students, or focused on the select few of our staff. This is for everybody in our organization, whether it's a director, a superintendent, grade 2 teacher, or a custodian. It's actually thinking differently, taking what you know and creating something better. And a simple example I use is if you are if you're teaching something and you have a student in front of you and you only know 3 ways to teach that, and none of those strategies work, do you simply give up on the kid, or do you take what you know and try to develop something, even something simple on the fly, to actually help that kid to be successful? And if we are only stuck with what we know, then we leave a lot of kids behind, and we leave them a lot out in their learning. So we have to look at ourselves as innovators, and it's really hard to do this 100% of the time, but this is a process that we should look at. How are we encouraging this with our staff, that they are developing new ways to teach to help kids so that they can learn better, and really starting with that learner focus. And the notion of innovation starts with this question: is what is best for this learner, and thinking about it in a very personalized way, and giving kids different opportunities. And so we're seeing that where education is headed is that more and more teachers, because of the access, are thinking of different ways, and not solely included with technology, but just in any type of learner. This is one example. This is a teacher who's actually in the Peel board, and I love sharing this example because it's something I was like really excited about. Lisa Jones, you can follow her at Lisa_T_Jones on Twitter. I worked with her, and she was okay for me to share this story, but she was actually telling me about how she has been gone for school for a few years because she was actually sharing. She was actually on a maternity leave for 3 years, and she felt that she was, teaching in a way that, was not only, boring for her students, but for her kids. And so she was teaching on an overhead using a transparency, and within 1 week of connecting her on Twitter and actually, connecting her with other, educators in the field of science, she had her students teach or doing mitosis in 60-second videos. Even though she didn't really know how to make a video, she just let her kids kind of go wild. And so I think about her understanding of, mitosis and that, but and allowing herself to think outside of the box. And she adapted this idea and challenged them because she saw a Twitter in 60 seconds video and said, this would be really cool to actually, let our kids create videos like this, teaching a science concept. I think that's a really powerful thing. And so this is where we'd like to see, that teachers are giving kids different opportunities. And going back to Patrick's earlier question about the curriculum, she's still teaching the curriculum. She's just doing it in a way that's much more engaging. And I would guarantee the kid would go much deeper in their learning, creating something about mitosis, as opposed to, listening to a teacher explain it on an overhead projector. Like, just even the thought of that makes me cringe. So I would like to think that we can go a lot deeper with the work that we're doing. And so when we look at technology, this is something I wrote, and this was actually drawn up by Bill Ferreter. You can follow him at Plug Us In. And I look at, how leadership is changing in education and how we look at these technologies, and they're not just about simply tweeting or, using collaborative documents, but actually, changing culture and really pushing education forward and building relationships. And the thing with technology now, which is so important in this, is that all of these aspects have always been hugely important in our work, but we can just do them better now with technology. And a lot of people are starting to gravitate this. And I know a lot of work about Peel, specifically, how they've used technology to engage the community and share ideas. I think it was a really powerful thing because they've really started to flatten this organization through connections and have an understanding of learning. And so I think that we can predict where education is going, but I see little snippets of what it looks like right now and how powerful it could be, and how we can really push what we're doing in our work today. So I'm just going to stop there for a second. And so Patrick or Shelley, do you have any questions about anything or want to push back on anything?
We just had one question. It was about how to help teachers kind of release that control over the learning. You talked about the different mindset, but is there another way to help ease their anxiety about releasing that control?
Yeah, and I think what's really important about that notion is that, and this is a generalization, but teachers don't like to be controlled in the first place, right? We don't like to feel someone else is controlling us, yet we often are very controlling of our classroom. So we do the thing to others that we often hate the most. And it's thinking about the environment that we would be successful in and what we would need to be successful. And I think about, when I was a principal, I tried to be the principal that I would want if I was a teacher in my staff. And I think that one of the questions that I pose to teachers all the time and educators is, would you want to spend the whole day learning in your own classroom? Would you want to be subjected to what you do with kids all day? And I know that the notion of managing a person is not really conducive to learning. And I think that it's really kind of being empathetic of what we would want and where we would excel. And teaching is about not only about, you know, content, but it's about motivation and how you get kids excited about stuff. And if we're just basically trying to control, there's a great quote. It's like, freedom is about power. It talks about this notion about we are here to unleash talent. Maybe someone will share on that. It's a Harriet Rubin tweet. Talent, not about controlling it. And my job as an educator is to unleash talent. So I want you to go way beyond what I could even believe you're able to do. And there's a great book, Multipliers, but there's the version of education, and it talks about supersizing, getting people to go way beyond what even they believe they can do. And I think that doesn't come from an environment of control. And I think that for me, I try not to do the thing that I would hate, because if you try to control me and my job, I would just die. It would be just a horrible thing. And most teachers feel the exact same way. And so we have to learn to release that the same way we want to be trusted in our work that we do as well. Patrick or Shelley, anything else, or not? Don't want to talk to me? Okay.
But because we know the next topic you're going to be speaking on, I'm saving a couple.
Okay. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. This is the last part, is where do we start? And I really love this graphic that my brother Alec Couros actually made. I think he made it several years ago, and so this notion of the network teacher, it's a very powerful image, I believe, because of all the opportunities that we have to learn now, and I think that's something that we have to think about. And so I don't want anyone who's new to this to be overwhelmed, but I want people that are, you know, I'm looking at all the people like Vicky Morgado and Tina Zeta and Jim Cash, that are tweeting right now, and I want you to think about how do they push to that next level, because it's really simple for us to say, oh, people aren't changing, yet many of us have not really gone beyond Twitter in the last 4 years, and so we've got it, we're comfortable, you know, and so how do you get to that next point? And so there's so many opportunities. One of the things that I've been exploring are things like Vine and like short sharing services that, you know, what is the impact? What does this do? How are so many people using this? And I think that we need to like start spreading our wings at the people that, you know, would be considered, you know, experts in the area of technology. We have to continuously push and ask questions. And so the thing that I love about this image that my brother created, and I think he's speaking as well at some point. Is that true? And I'm sure he'll talk about this way in further depth than I will. But the most powerful part of this image, well, there's two. First of all, the person in the center. And this has been shared as the network teacher, but could you actually, you know, put that as a student? Because a student should have the same opportunities to learn. Because if we think Twitter and blogging are amazing for learning, how are we trickling that down to our students? And so the other part that I think is really powerful is the arrows back and forth. It is not simply you're getting all this information, but you're allowed to share and create and share that back. And I think that's where you really learn. I don't think I really learn anything from a conference until I blog about it, until I actually process it myself. Because when I process, then I make the connections, which are so crucial. And I think that's something that we want people to do. So if I was to suggest to, you know, a new teacher, I would just say pick one thing. And to be honest with you, and I know I've said this a million times, Twitter is that really powerful tool, but most people that are watching this already have that account. So if I am someone who's like mastered that, I would start exploring and how powerful that could be, or start, you know, looking at video. And I know a lot of people are uncomfortable with that, which is a good thing, because we are, you know, a lot of people that are trying different things are very comfortable making others feel uncomfortable, but maybe not pushing ourselves to that point as well. One of the things I'd love to share is a project I actually just started on the weekend, and that's Amber Tiemann in there. And so, hey, it's Andy Sinek, or Andy Cretion, LOL. So if you ever follow Andy Quishan. He's on right now. He's kind of interrupted. I'm sure he'll have some questions, but follow him. He's really desperate for followers. He's wanting to make sure that he has some. So please follow him. I try to beg for him because, well, he will do it himself too. So
thanks, George.
Anyways, back to what we were talking about. One of the things I started just on the past weekend, and it was really simple. I just did it sitting in basically on a walk. I sat down and took my phone. Is Twitter has a new video service, and where you can share 30 seconds. So I started a hashtag called EDUin30. This is totally brand new. Really, I would get you to explore it. And what I do is every week I ask a question and I encourage people to respond back through video, because to have an understanding of how you could use that service, modeling, because I would love for teachers to think, could you get a kid to do a reflection that way? Is that an opportunity for a kid to reflect on what they learned for the week in a 30-second video that could be shared to a classroom hashtag? So, you know, how do we get this service to trickle down with how we could get our students to learn? But the other part of it too is that I wanted to push some people out of their comfort zone, because it's really simple to use Twitter. But now that there's a video component, some people feel uncomfortable talking on screen and things like that. And I wanted to kind of build that empathy, because there's a lot of people that are terrified of tweeting. And so being scared of sharing yourself a video online, you know, might actually give you some empathy of some people that are struggling with other aspects. And so I wanted to model something and create something, but I also wanted to help, you know, use this service. And to be honest with you, it was pushing myself out of the comfort zone. It took me about 10 takes before I was comfortable sharing the video I was sharing, and it just reminded me, you know, how tough, you know, learning in the open is, but long term it is something that's really powerful. So going back to this question, where do we start? I also want to think about how do we get students to do this stuff. And this is a 17-year-old student who her about.me page was featured, and you think about how now she has this profile and this basically this cover letter of her online, and it's really powerful. If you ever look her up and find this about.me page, you'll see like she actually has YouTube videos, she has connections. And so how do we get to the point of actually getting our students to this? And we will never get our students here in school unless we think about how we do this ourselves. And one of the things I've really been promoting is that by the time a kid leaves school, these are 3 things that they should have. They should have a professional social network. So not necessarily Twitter or, you know, Google+, but they should be able to connect with people in the same area, you know, that they're interested in. They should be able to connect with them and share some ideas. And then a digital portfolio, which actually allows them to share their great opportunities. And Shelly and I were having a talk about, you know, how we could do this in our schools. And I know she's, you know, they're at a place where they're doing it with one platform, we're doing it with another platform. But the important part is that the kids have a space where they're creating this footprint. And then an about.me page. This is something, and even though it's listed as something, you know, you should have before high school, this starts at kindergarten. This starts, you know, really early, getting kids to actually do this stuff. And the about.me page is a great opportunity for, or something similar for a kid to have like an online presence, but also if you were to do something really simple that you could do in the next 20 minutes, if you've never, you know, created any online presence, you could create an about.me page that would, you know, have a space and can share your learning and, you know, do all these things. So if I was to say, you know, just one thing, try to think of, because I could say Twitter, I could say blog, but what I want to say is think of one thing that is a little bit harder than what you're doing already and go to that next level. So if you're not on Twitter and you know people are trying it and found success, try that. If you're on Twitter, where are you pushing yourself? If you're blogging, where are you pushing yourself? So think of the one thing for you that pushes you to that next level, so you're modeling that growth, and then think about how does this pertain to kids. And so that's it for the presentation, and I'm going to make sure that I give lots of time to have a conversation here with Patrick and Shelley. So that's it. If you have any questions, please tweet them out or share any other space as well. So I'll turn it over to you guys, and please feel free to ask whatever.
There were 2 questions that were posted. One that I think you've answered, but I want to just be clear. So the question is about creating capacity in a system, and how should system leaders sort of function to support that? And I know you talked generally about not controlling, but are there specific things that could be done to help move that along? And then the second question is about equity for students, equity with access, and this is a common theme I know on my board, in particular Stan, but we're interested in your view related to that.
Yeah, and I think we actually had this equity question before, and I'll start with the leadership one, but I've actually seen a lot of people focus on the notion of equity at the lowest common denominator. So it's like, hey, we want everyone to have equal access to nothing, because that's equity. And what schools should be actually aiming for is equity at a higher standard. So, for example, I know, Dufferin Peel is moving towards bring your own device. And so many of those kids will, bring devices, and some of those kids will not have them. So it's imperative to the school to ensure that those kids who might not have access at home get that access at school, because it's kind of like you're taking a library away from kids. If you took libraries out of schools, people would go nuts that you would take so much information away from a kid, or from our community. Yet we have no issue taking away devices with all the information in the world out of the pockets of our kids. And I think that what that is going to take is thinking differently about the resources you have. So if you're going BYOD and you're still bringing in the cart of 30 laptops to a classroom and 20 of those kids already have a device, is there a different way you could actually do this? So it's actually trying to figure out ways to think differently. The idea, like we've just replicated things over and over again. So we had laptops on carts, so then we want iPads, and now we put them on a cart. And they're not the same device. Could you not take those laptops, have them in like a learning commons, and have kids sign them out for courses if you want to provide different opportunities, as opposed to we just use them as a class time? And this goes back to that idea, is that technology should be at the point of instruction. I cannot imagine going to something where I'm going to learn and not having my technology with me. Obviously if I'm playing basketball and learning how to shoot, different thing. But where I'm learning about different things, the access to information is crucial, because it allows me to go deeper in things that I'm interested in. And we want that. And the question I've been posing to people is that if I say something and you're really excited about it, and you go on your device to explore it, and then I stop you, the distraction from learning is not the device, it's me, because I've decided that my teaching is more important than your learning. And so it's not every kid does that, but it's the idea of actually getting kids opportunities to further their learning. And so some of those kids that don't have those devices, schools have to figure out a way, and it's going to take innovative leadership that thinks differently and tries different things. It is not like, well, everyone wants equal time to the cart. It's, you got to think differently to provide that. And so that goes back into the first question, which is about leadership. And on a system change level, I'm really adamant about this, is that it's really, principals are really key. Obviously, you have to have a director or superintendents that are really open to this stuff, but principals are so close to kids, and they have a lot of authority there. And so any leader that doesn't model open learning, or that they're open to learning, will develop people that are under them, in the hierarchy of the structure, that do the same thing. Is that if I'm not open to learning as a leader, why would my staff be? And if I'm not open to trying different things and taking risks, why would my staff be? So part of that leadership and systemic change is really crucial, is that at all levels we're modeling learning and trying different things and pushing our thinking. And so it is crucial that we have leadership that does this. And I think that we have to start looking at the type of people that we are hiring in those positions that impact so many, because it's easy to use the same interview questions that you've used for the last 10 years while schools have changed dramatically, and we need people that think differently if we want to really move forward. Shelley, I'm waiting for a question from you.
All right. We have somebody who, they're really excited about the ideas that you've presented. They just want to know, how can they really excite their students to unleash their talents? How can they really tap into that with technology?
Well, yeah, so that's a really great, I think it's as simple as asking them. I think it's like just saying, what's something you love? And, there's projects like, so many educators have gone to ed camps and love how ed camps run. But ed camps, the whole notion of an ed camp is you explore things that you're interested in, which is why people love things like Genius Hour or doing maker spaces and things like this, is actually getting kids to the opportunity to explore. And so I heard the difference, or these two definitions of individualized and personalized learning from Yang Zhao. And I don't know if this is if this is written down somewhere. These are things I heard. And so he talked about individualized learning being where people take different paths to get to the same place. So if you have to teach a curriculum objective, you actually have to, you allow kids to try, because that's honestly part of your job as a teacher, and it's the way we work. And to me, it'd be unethical for me to say, forget the curriculum, just do whatever. But that being said, the other thing he talked about is personalized learning, where we allow people to take different paths, but that end up in different spaces. And I think that it's really crucial in our work is that we find ways to provide both opportunities and actually create those personalized learning opportunities, because then you start targeting in what kids can do. Really simple thing that we did in our school, which was great for learning and great for community, was a thing called Identity Day. So if you just Google Identity Day, you'll probably find links or examples of it. It was started actually in my school, and I'm really proud of that because it spread all over the world. Not by me. I wish I was that smart. It was my vice principal at the time. And what it was kids were actually were sharing things that they were excited about, passionate about. So the question was like, what do you love? And they got to share it. And every person in that organization in our school did it. So the custodian had a display, I had a display, and we just talked about things we loved. And it was really interesting because we got to know kids and what their passions were, and got to know them on a different level, but then use those things in our classrooms. So like we had one girl who you would never know was a national champion BMX biker. And so teachers that knew that now because of that project actually really tapped in to that process. And I think that's a really powerful thing. So I would actually say out of anything I've ever been a part of in a school, Identity Day was the best thing. So if you can Google that and make it happen in your school, it's a great way to start unleashing that talent, just like they're asking.
There were a couple other questions that came forward, George.
Yep.
The two which I think are actually combined. So the question is, who are your go-tos for resources and learning? So, and I know you mentioned some authors, so there was another question about who are your favorite authors to read to help you grow? So maybe you might be able to answer some of those, and we can draw on some of those as school districts moving forward.
Oh, that's a really tough one because I'm not... Yeah, I can't really pin it down because the reality of it is that there's different people for different things. So, honestly, the two people I'm talking with, I would consider huge resources and influences because you do things that, push what we're doing in our schools and things like that. And I think that we often refer to, authors and, people that research schools. And I'm, really big on talking to people in schools, and I think that's where the access is. There is no better research on teaching than teaching. That's it. That's the biggest benefit is talk to teachers about teaching, and you'll learn a ton. So if I was forced to give you names of people that have had an impact, my brother, I would love to say him. I usually bug him, but I won't today. I'll lay off for a night. Alec Couros, great influence, but it's really good to have somebody who has no filter when you're talking to him. So there's no like beating around the bush with my brother. If he doesn't like something I'm doing, he'll tell me, and vice versa. So it's always nice to have someone like that, that you will push you and help you become better. And I think one of the things that I really believe in, if you haven't ever seen Rita Pearson's TED Talk, and she's passed away since, and what a legacy to leave is that amazing talk. She talks about every kid needs a champion, and I think that the one thing I would push a little bit further is so does every adult, and I think that finding your champion, that person that does everything you and makes you better, being that champion for someone will make an impact on you too. And I think that's something I would really challenge people. And I think that if you want to look at the whole notion of game changers, the game changers are in the classroom doing things with kids, and the ones that push their colleagues and try to get better, that hold other teachers in their building accountable to what is happening in the classroom and push them because it's all about kids. Those are the people that I look to all the time.
There's a really good quote here from somebody on Twitter. She said, it was Nicole James, she said, bump it up to the next level. We encourage our students to do it, but sometimes we remain in our comfort zone. So I think that kind of really captures everything that you're saying tonight.
Totally. And what's funny is that the idea that, our comfort zone is that a lot of people, like I said earlier, that are on social media that have been doing it for years, constantly talk about pushing people out of their comfort zone. And I'm like, okay, what are you doing? What are you doing that's different? And so, yes, they're learning stuff, but what actions is it leading to? And I'm not a big meeting person, not because I don't think they're valuable, but because a lot of times they don't lead to a ton of action. I think that we have to look at, spending more time doing and less time talking about stuff. And so try different things and push yourself. And a lot of parents are freaked out because they think we're trying different things and kids are becoming guinea pigs for, what are experiments of learning. And I think that the first guinea pig is a teacher. They should be, you have to be a master of learning before you become a master teacher, and try different things. And I agree, Shelley. It's a great quote. It's a powerful one. Don't look at what you're doing today. Be happy where you've come from years ago, but look at what you're doing next and how you can push forward.
So Shelley, I don't know if you had any other questions. There was only one more that came forward to me, and because I know George, I have some of the history, but the question was, what was your tipping point for embracing technology and bringing it into the classroom?
Well, I've always used technology, to be honest with you. So I've always used it. I actually started off wanting to be a kindergarten teacher and ended up teaching high school technology. So but as a teacher, it was really interesting because when I went into administration and the focus on relationships, I actually kind of pushed away a little bit. But what I saw was, and to be honest, I did the same thing, was let's say the kids at computer lab, let's, get them to do things on there. And it was kid to computer. And so I felt that kids were tuning out from one another, and they were so focused on the screen and what was happening there, but they were doing typing games or Math Blaster. We did Math Blaster, which to be honest was the best game ever when I was a kid. But I didn't see the connection. I felt like we were kind of losing touch, and so I actually kind of started pushing my teachers away from it for a little bit, and then I got pushed to say you know what, you're learning a lot of stuff, but you're not sharing it. And your role as an educator is actually, or administrator, is to share this learning. So I actually jumped in myself, and what I saw, which was really beneficial, was not only the learning but the relationships. And I think that's really, to me, is the most important thing, is that if you don't have strong relationships in your school or with your students, you'll never get amazing things done. The bosses that have terrible relationships with their organization get their objectives done, but that's it. And so when I saw the power of how it impacted relationships and how I connected with people and learned with so many amazing people, and I've been blessed to know people like yourself and so many other, especially in Ontario, because we don't just talk once in a while. We're connected all the time, and it's made, like, education in Canada and the world much, much smaller. That's where it was really a selling point for me. But I had to experience that for me to see that, because if it's just kid to screen, that's something that's different. But if it's kid talking with other kids and connecting, that's where I see this real power. And it's like I always say, is that we have access to all the information in the world, but more importantly, we have access to one another. And when I experienced that, it changed everything for me.
Perfect. I didn't see any other final questions, and it's been just under the hour. So, Shelley, I'm looking to you. Did you see anything else?
No, I think we're good. I think there's just a lot of excitement on Twitter right now. People are ready to try one thing. They're ready to get out of their comfort zone. So I think we started something really great tonight.
So here's I know you're gonna give 3 challenges, but I'm gonna give one. I don't know if it's in there. I would love for every person that's listening and has participated to actually do one of the EDU in 30 challenges and put a video. If you're on Twitter and you're tweeting, I want you to push that level. It would be awesome, because I love hearing voices and seeing faces, but I love hearing ideas too, and just a great way to get to know people. So that's what I'll change. But I'm gonna go back to sharing the screen, because I know you guys want to end up talking about this one last part.
Well, and I'm just going to point out, first of all, George, that is one of our challenges.
Yes.
So it's great. We added that one in. So I want to say thank you very much to you. As always, I found new insights from your comments, your presentation. I always learn from you. And I think that your message, especially about the innovator's mindset and thinking about things differently, is especially relevant today. And I think as Shelley pointed out, the Twitter feed, things that I've been watching scroll through the screen over here, it's been echoed by people who've been watching. They found you interesting, relevant, useful, everything that we'd be hoping for. I also think that it's a significant component of what we're trying to do with the virtual speaker series. So this, for us, at least in the GTA and the 9 school boards that are participating in this particular project, this was something new, virtual speaker series. We were trying to think about things very differently. We wanted to be able to connect with others, and we wanted to try to expand our learning opportunities. So this certainly is a new direction for us, and we want to thank everyone out there who participated. I think it went very well, and I want to say thank you again to George, to Shelley, to everyone else. We also want to remind everybody, and I think that's the screen that you've got up there, George, that we do have an online community that we hope that you will join. In that community, we have information on the upcoming speakers, the dates, their topics, as well as the challenges that George has mentioned. And all of these things have been designed to help us move forward with our teaching and learning option. And George, you mentioned the 30-second Twitter video. It is with a 3rd challenge, I believe, related to the George Couros presentation. And if you complete the challenges, you will get a badge. So we are wanting to experiment and learn a little bit ourselves. And this is in a safe environment where you can then take some of the ideas and hopefully apply them in your classrooms. The only other couple of things that I'll note are that the video from tonight's session, we are going to be putting a link in this e-community, and that way you can review it and access it moving forward as you need to. And finally, in our e-community, we do have several discussion boards set up. And the intent there really is we want to keep the conversation going. We want you to share your ideas. We want you to ask questions. We want you to learn from each other. So I would encourage everybody as much as possible to get in there, to register. If you do have questions, contact the e-learning contact for your board. And with that, I am ready to say I'm tired and I've learned a lot. And thank you, George. Shelley, did you have anything else to add?
I just wanted to thank everybody, just like you did. It was a great night. It's a lot of positive energy out there. Encourage more people to join. Take this back to your schools. Maybe show the video, maybe at a lunch and learn or an after-school session, and just show everybody the power of what we're trying to do. And everybody's still encouraged to join for our next speaker as well.
Hey, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the evening and look forward to seeing what comes next from the other speakers. I know you got some really great ones. And Dean Shareski, too.
I don't know that we, yes, we mentioned Dean Shareski is our next speaker, and it's on March 24th.
Yeah, he's awesome. People will really love it.
Yes, we hope to see everybody there. So thank you very much, George.
Yeah.
And thank you to everyone.
Thank you, George.
Thanks, guys.